What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here, and today we're going to talk about how you can get 9 power charges off of one single spell cast, which is going to be really nice for our Adonia's builds when we walk into a map and we want to get kick-started into the build. So we're going to put a timer here, and we're going to pretend like we just walked into a map, and we're going to get our power charges and turn on Pinnacle Power. Here we go. Dunzo. Ta-da! 9 power charges, and we're ready to go. So first things first, I am quite sick with a really bad sinus infection that's taken me out for 5 days so far. I'm feeling a little bit better today, so I can actually make a video, but it's the reason why I haven't been streaming recently. And so that's why I sound very nasally and French. So what I'm going to do in this video is slow down my speech. That way I'm a little bit more clear and understood, but it might make the video a little bit longer. So bear with me on that, all right? All right, let's get started. So the TLDR of what we're doing is we're just using Firestorm to get our power charges now, because Firestorm is able to consume all 3 types of the elements rather than using the Unleash tech with Spark to just sit there and like cast our Sparks multiple times to get ourselves up to 6 charges. What we're going to do is we're just going to cast Firestorm one time and we can actually get our 9 charges. Now, the way that this works is that with a Stormweaver, we can use multiplying squalls, and then what we can also do is run overabundance to actually get the Firestorm up to 4 limits. So when we cast our Firestorm with Spell Cascade and Spell Echo with overabundance and multiplying squalls, we get 4 Firestorms in one singular cast. This is going to consume 4 of each elemental infusion type, but we don't need to get 4 of each because that would be many infusions. What we're going to do is we're going to increase our limit for our cold infusions to 4. And what this does is that when we cast our 4 frost bombs, you can see that we get the 4 cold infusions, but then we get 4 of whatever. It could be 3 and 1, 4 and 0, 2 and 1, 1 and 3, whatever combination. You're going to get 4 plus 4. You're going to get 8 infusions. And then from there, we can cast our Firestorm. Let's see if we have a pretty good chance for this to happen. Bam, we got our 9 power charges. So the way that happens, because that's 8 obviously, so where's the extra one coming from the 9th? Well, this is going to be in Lust for Power, where we have a 10% chance when you gain a power charge to gain additional power charge. And that has a pretty high chance of hitting, and when it does, there you go, you get your 9 power charges. Now, is 9 power charges the optimal way to play this? I don't think it is. I'm not so sure about that. I run 7 and I've had way better results with 7 power charges. I'll explain what I'm doing. But what I'm doing in this version is I'm just running this helm with maximum power charges, and then obviously my Adonia's has the +1 to maximum power charges. So that's getting me up to 9, but I feel much more comfortable on 7, and we're going to talk about how I'm running the 7 power charge setup. But I just want to show how you can get 9 in a single cast. We're still going to get 7 with a single cast, but I like 7 much better. So let's go over that and talk about what's going on. Now, if you are running a setup that has 9 power charges and you enjoy it, then by all means keep doing what you're doing. I'm not telling you not to run that. I'm just going to explain what my version is, which is running 7 power charges. It could run 8, but in order to run 8, I would need a Vertex that runs the power charge, which if we do that, is coming out to 240 Divines, and this is exactly the one you'd want. It has the increased chance for ailments, the +4 to skill levels, and the power charges. This is exactly the Vertex we want, but it's 200 divs, so I'm not that rich at the moment. So what we're going to do in the swap is that instead, I am going to run my Adonias in my set 1 and my staff in set 2 for the infusion of power. And I'm going to refund these points, and instead I am going to run my critical overload, and I'm going to run drenched. And that's the first part. Now, the first thing that's cool about this is that because we are running Firestorm to get our infusions, we no longer need the Unleash tech in order to get our power charges. So we're just going to refund these 4 points. Now, where did I put those 4 points? I took those 4 points and I put them this way so that we can get our cast speed and get up to storm charged. And then what I found in the build is that this whole increased energy reshield charge rate and the fastest start just doesn't matter on this build, because we just freeze everything in one shot and we just control the entire time. And the only thing that's really a danger to us is one-shot mechanics. So we don't care about how long it takes our energy shield to recharge. We just care about how big the energy shield is so that we don't get one shot. Other than that, we just freeze everything and kill it by the time it unfreezes. So I took these 3 points out and I put them here into critical overload, and then I took these 4 points and put them up here to get the cast speed and the storm charge. And I gotta say, I have been having a lot better results with doing that. Much better. The second Now, the second thing that you'll notice is that we had to replace a skill with Firestorm, and that skill was Elemental Weakness. Now, I know what you're thinking. Elemental Weakness was the curse that threw the boss's resistances at the negative that allowed you to do more damage. So, are you losing out on a lot of damage by not running Elemental Weakness? Yes, but no. I'm actually going to show you how we actually got more damage out of it. So first things first, we took out Elemental Weakness, so we don't need these Curse Magnitude points anymore. So we took those out and came down to grab Lust for Power, which is giving us another maximum charge. This goes from 6 to 7. The second thing that we did was we took out all of the exposure nodes, and we are no longer running Whispering Ice Staff. Why is that? Well, let's go over through the math a little bit. With these exposure nodes plus the Whispering Ice Staff, this is what allowed the exposure to apply negative 100% resistance against a target. But if we look here, being negative 100%, against a boss, those values are reduced by 50%. So really the exposure was negative 50% against a boss. Now bosses naturally had 50% resistances, so now you just threw it to 0%. But we have a passive called Heavy Frost. What is that passive? Well, Heavy Frost states that it ignores non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies, and we freeze everything. So does exposure do anything for us? Nope, doesn't do anything. We're going to bring them down to 0 no matter what. So there's no reason to run any exposure at all. So what are we going to run instead? What we're going to do is we're going to take those points and we're going to grab cast speed here and here. And the reason being is we are going to run a new staff, being Chiming Staff. Now, what are we doing with Chiming Staff? We're trying to get Sigil of Power. Now, what we're looking for, number one, is we want the Sigil of Power to be 18 to 20. This is going to dramatically increase the cost, but that's the first thing you're looking for is 18 to 20 on the Sigil of Power. And then from there, what we want is the actual level of all spells. Now, why do we want all spells instead of cold, fire, or lightning? The reason being is that Sigil of Power is not a cold, fire, or lightning. It can only be modified by all spells. And by increasing the level of Sigil of Power, you increase the damage that it's giving you multiplicatively per stage, and you drain your mana immediately. So this actually gives you a massive amount of damage with all spells versus just fire, cold, or lightning. Lastly, we want cast speed because we're going to be going through rotation against the boss where we want to be able to get our Sigil of Power and our Firestorm out very quickly and then rotate back into our main weapon set and actually do the damage to the boss. And that is essentially what we're doing there. Now, the next thing that we're doing is we're going to socket this with Zopek's Soul Core of Power. We cannot socket it with a Hedge Master. Don't waste your money on that. And that is because we are already running one here in our set one. It does not allow you to run both. You can only have one of these in your entire gear. So we're going to do this. This is going to give us 50% chance that when we gain a power charge, we're going to gain an additional power charge. And in addition, with Lust for Power, this is going to give us 60% chance to gain a power charge. Now, what does that mean? It means that when we have our 6 infusions and we're trying to get to 7, we need 60% chance to fail 6 times in a row for us not to get 7. And the chances for that to happen are that, which is 1 in every 244 times. So 1 in every 244 times you cast Firestorm, you're going to get 6 infusions instead of 7. So it's a very rare occurrence, but it works quite well here. We don't really need to worry about it. So that's essentially what we're doing. And then we're going to use Sigil of Power to give us the bonus damage. Now, because we are not throwing the boss's resistances into the negative, is Sigil of Power really giving us that much damage against the boss where it outpowers what we were doing with the curse and the resistances? No, but it's only about 20% less. It's very, very close. It's not really noticeable when we were already kind of one-shotting the targets, unless you're a Giga Chad and you have Rakyadas. If you have Rakyadas, you can shove this into your cast on crit Comet, and now what happens is you can throw those resistances into the negatives, and now you actually deal a lot more damage than we did with using the exposure staff and the exposure points. And that's essentially how we're doing that. So let's go over some of the rotations that we're going to do when we start the map. So let's imagine we just got into a map. What are we going to do? Very quickly, we cast our Frost Bombs, then we're going to cast our Firestorm, then we cast our Pinnacle of Power and go. And it literally looks this quick. Done. You just go, and that's it. And as you're going through the map, you can literally just cast Firestorm and just cast Pinnacle of Power. You don't need to do that. Now, when you go against a boss, what's the rotation going to be? Well, as you're walking up to the boss, let's say this is the boss, you're going to Frost Bomb the boss, and then you're going to walk up, cast your Sigil of Power, cast your Firestorm, and then cast your Tempest, and then go into your rotation, and the boss will drop. It will look like this. Dead. Boss is dead. That's it. Boss will get hit for 40 to 50 million burst damage with the comets. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So that's how we're kind of running the build now. It feels much, much smoother. It's very, very nice. Some added things that we did from the build is that because we no longer need to run the Unleash tech, we don't need to run Unleash in the Spark. So what we did instead was we ran Freeze. This allows for more freeze buildup, which is super, super smooth. And then for the actual Firestorm, what are we running as the gems? Rapid Casting, because we want to cast it fast. Spell Cascade, because we want to be able to cast 3 of them. We're going to run Prolonged Duration, because turns out Firestorm is actually really good at applying ailments against a boss. So this actually helps our burst damage, which is really nice, which means that we want to have Pinpoint Critical, because we want it to deal crit damage, which is going to feed into our cast on critical. But we also want to run Freeze because we want it to have that freeze buildup, which is going to feed into our cast on elemental ailment. So this version of the build is just flowing much smoother than the previous version, and I hope you guys enjoy it because it's really, really, really nice. It's smoother than it was before, and it was already super smooth. So hope you enjoy that. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I have nothing else for you. Operator Otter out.